Are you tired of constantly comparing yourself to others and feeling like you're never good enough? In this video, we'll explore the teachings of Buddhism to help you break free from the cycle of comparison and find true contentment in being yourself. Lesson 1. Identify your personal triggers. Recognizing the triggers for your comparing habit is the first step toward breaking it. According to Buddhism, developing mindfulness is the first step toward changing oneself. The capacity to be totally present, aware of what we are doing and why, is something that the Buddha highly valued. We frequently unintentionally fall into this trap when it comes to comparison. We might compare ourselves to someone we see in passing, someone we work with on social media, or even a complete stranger. Their success, looks, or belongings arouse a deep-seated sense of inadequacy. After that, we absorb this and begin to believe that we are insufficient, ineffective, or unachievable. Being mindful enables us to see when this comparison starts. We may break the cycle before it gets out of control by becoming aware of the precise times when we begin to feel inferior to others. Without passing judgment, we might simply acknowledge that we have been provoked and notice these moments. Buddhism teaches us to address our thoughts with kindness rather than judgment. By practicing mindfulness, one can develop a self-awareness that separates stimuli from reaction. You can respond more empathetically rather than jumping to conclusions or becoming envious. You will eventually become adept at identifying and removing these triggers, enabling you to live a life free from continual comparison. Lesson 2. Pay attention to your advantages. Buddhism believes that each of us possesses certain talents and abilities. The significance of having self-awareness and self-compassion is emphasized in the teachings of the Buddha. We are urged to concentrate on our own advantages and good traits rather than what we lack or what others possess that we do not. We frequently overlook our own special talents when we judge ourselves against others. We get obsessed with our perceived shortcomings. However, each person possesses innate strengths that define their identity. Buddhism holds that each person's journey is distinct and special, and that realizing our abilities is essential to achieving our life's purpose. The concept of non-attachment is central to Buddhist thinking. This holds true for other people's thoughts and judgments as well as tangible belongings. Because we are dependent on outside approval, we frequently assess ourselves against others. We think we would be happier or more successful if we were more like someone else. But this way of thinking ignores the truth that contentment and happiness originate internally. For instance, you might underestimate your capacity to establish a more meaningful one-on-one connection with individuals if you are evaluating yourself against a coworker who is an exceptional public speaker. Although both are useful abilities, their functions are distinct. Instead than wishing you had someone else's talents, acknowledge your own and concentrate on honing them. Buddhism says that we go inward on our path. More important than obtaining outward symbols of achievement is developing virtues like kindness, tolerance, and wisdom. True happiness comes from these strengths, which are independent of how we compare to other people. Lesson 3. Make your own objectives. We compare ourselves to others primarily because we are unsure of where we want to go in life. Buddhism places a strong emphasis on the value of intention, or knowing what drives our behavior and our goals. We can cease evaluating ourselves in relation to other people when we develop personal goals that are consistent with our principles. Comparison is frequently the result of unclear personal goals. We believe that we ought to be going in the same direction as others when we observe what others are accomplishing. Buddhist teachings, however, remind us that each person's path is distinct. A person's source of fulfillment might not be the same for another. By establishing personal goals, we can avoid becoming sidetracked by the achievements of others and instead concentrate on our own journey. We no longer feel the urge to compete when we are certain of what we want and why. We come to understand that our worth is not based on the achievements of others. If your objective is, for example, to lead a compassionate life, then you shouldn't feel inferior to someone else when they succeed financially. Your success is determined by how closely your values match your route, which is unique. Setting personal objectives helps us keep focused on the things that are really important to us, which is why it is so empowering. Lesson 4. Assemble a positive social circle. Buddhism says that our mental health is strongly influenced by the people we spend time with. An insincere and evil friend is more to be feared than a wild beast. A wild beast may wound your body, but an evil friend will wound your mind. The Buddha stated in the Dhammapada. This emphasizes how crucial it is to surround yourself with uplifting, encouraging people who foster personal development rather than feed into your fears. It is more difficult to overcome the propensity of comparison when we are surrounded by people who make harsh judgments of us or who compare themselves to others all the time. We could experience pressure to live up to irrational expectations or to comply to ideals that are at odds with our moral principles. Conversely, we are more likely to feel confident in ourselves when we are around others who encourage and support us. Positive people encourage us to concentrate on our advantages, acknowledge our accomplishments, and work toward our objectives without evaluating ourselves against others. They serve as a reminder that despite the way our journey may differ from someone else's, we are worthwhile just the way we are. Along with the Buddha and the Dharma, the Sangha, or community of practitioners, is regarded as one of the 3 jewels in Buddhism. Support, direction, and encouragement are given on the spiritual journey by the Sangha. We can apply this idea to our daily life. We foster a positive atmosphere for self-acceptance and inner serenity when we surround ourselves with like-minded individuals who encourage our personal development and share our beliefs. For instance, it could be time to reassess your friendship with a friend if you are continuously comparing your accomplishments to theirs because they are extremely critical or competitive. Rather, look for individuals who are upbeat and supportive and who acknowledge your accomplishments without drawing comparisons to their own. Your perspective may change significantly as a result of this change in your social circle. Being in the company of positive people keeps you focused on your own journey and helps you avoid falling victim to the comparison trap. Lesson 5. Don't try to be perfect. Buddhism teaches that everything is transient, even our quest for perfection. Our tendency to compare ourselves with others stems from our quest for perfection. When we see someone who appears to have it all, the ideal family, career, and life, we feel inadequate because our own lives don't measure up to this unachievable standard. The teachings of the Buddha serve as a reminder that perfection is a myth. Because life is intrinsically imperfect, striving for perfection frequently leads to misery. The discontent we experience when reality falls short of our expectations is referred to be suffering in Buddhism. Since perfection is unattainable, we set ourselves up for disappointment when we want it. Buddhism urges us to accept things as they are and live in the present, rather than striving for perfection. Accepting our flaws as well as ourselves is part of this. We release ourselves from the never-ending comparisons that result from comparing ourselves to other people when we let go of the drive to be flawless. Consider a situation where you are a student and you are always comparing your grades to those of a classmate who always seems to obtain better grades. You can believe that you are unworthy if you don't succeed to the same degree. Stress, exhaustion, and a feeling of failure can result from this perfectionistic way of thinking. However, even if your accomplishments differ from someone else's, you may still be proud of yourself if you change your attention from perfection to development. The Buddha advocated for inner calm and satisfaction over outward achievements as the sources of true happiness. We can develop a sense of self-acceptance and discover the beauty in our flaws by letting go of our need for perfection. Lesson 6. Honor others without making comparisons. Buddhism encourages compassion and interconnectivity, which can assist us in appreciating other people's accomplishments and happiness without putting ourselves in their shoes. When we compare other people to ourselves, we frequently feel intimidated or jealous of their success. Buddhism, on the other hand, urges us to view people as fellow pilgrims on the journey through life, rather than as rivals. The practice of sympathetic delight, or finding happiness in the happiness of others, is known as mudita in the Buddhist tradition. Through this practice, we can develop an open and giving heart that enables us to enjoy the accomplishments of others without feeling lessened by them. Mudita's ability to refocus our attention from competition to connection makes it a potent remedy for the comparison trap. Consider a buddy of yours who recently got a promotion at work. Practice mudita rather than feeling inferior by comparing your career to theirs. Sincerely rejoice with them and feel their happiness. You will fortify your bond and reaffirm that your success is not diminished by the success of others by doing this. Mudita practice can be difficult at first, particularly if you are accustomed to comparing yourself to other people. But eventually, it becomes an instinctive way of looking at the world. You can release yourself from the feelings of jealousy and wrath that comparison frequently brings when you are able to congratulate others without drawing comparisons. Buddhism asserts that all beings are interdependent. The prosperity of an individual boosts the well-being of the group as a whole. By honoring one another, we make the world a more sympathetic and caring place, where each person's accomplishments are respected. Lesson 7. Put your progress first rather than perfection. Buddhism frequently describes the route to enlightenment as a gradual one. The teachings of the Buddha highlight that striving for growth and self-awareness, rather than perfection, is what constitutes spiritual progress. It is also possible to apply this idea to our daily life. When we evaluate ourselves against others, we frequently pay more attention to their final product, their successes and accomplishments, and less attention to the journey they had to get there. As a result of only seeing the final result, and not the difficulties or setbacks that led up to it, we may begin to feel inadequate. Buddhism encourages us to stop comparing ourselves to other people and instead concentrate on our own development. The Buddha preached that development happens little by little and that every step, no matter how small, is significant. You can divert your attention from what other people are doing and value your own path by concentrating on your own progress. When acquiring a new talent, for instance, it's common to put yourself in the shoes of someone who is more skilled than you are. But concentrate on what you have learned and how far you have gone, rather than how far ahead they are. Honor your advancement, regardless of how minor it may appear, and keep in mind that development is an ongoing process. We can develop patience and self-compassion by adopting this approach. Rather than aiming for perfection, we understand that progress requires patience and hard work. We can release ourselves from the stress of comparison and enable ourselves to enjoy the trip by putting more emphasis on progress than perfection. Lesson 8. Negative thoughts reframed. Buddhism holds that our world is shaped by the thoughts we have. We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think. The Buddha once stated, this implies that our perception of the world is greatly influenced by the way we view ourselves and other people. Negative beliefs such as, I'm not good enough, I'll never be as successful as them, or I'm falling behind frequently fuel our comparisons to others. These ideas have the power to firmly embed themselves in our minds, influencing how we view the world and ourselves. Buddhism asserts that humans are capable of altering our mental states. Through self-awareness and mindfulness practices, we can recognize harmful thinking patterns and swap them out for more kind and helpful ones. For example, stop and reconsider the thought if you find yourself thinking, I'll never be as good as them. Say to yourself instead, I am making progress on my own unique path. This mental change can assist you in overcoming the comparing habit and developing a more upbeat and self-empowering outlook. It is not necessary to deny reality or act as though everything is ideal in order to reframe negative beliefs. Instead, it is about adopting a clearer, more empathetic perspective on things. Buddhism holds that our thoughts are transient and malleable, always open to modification. We can change our perspective on life by deliberately thinking more uplifting and caring thoughts. Buddhism's teachings provide a strong framework for breaking the habit of comparison. We can develop a strong sense of self-acceptance and inner peace by identifying our triggers, concentrating on our strengths, making personal objectives, surrounding ourselves with good people, avoiding perfectionism, celebrating others, and rephrasing negative thoughts. The Buddhist path emphasizes non-attachment, compassion, and self-awareness. True happiness is within reach when we give up the impulse to measure ourselves against others and release ourselves from needless pain. Everybody has a different road to take, and the things that make us valuable are not how we compare to other people, but rather how we live our lives in accordance with our principles and pursue inner peace. Give up comparing yourself to others and enjoy the freedom that comes from accepting who you are. Your path is unique to you, and it deserves respect and celebration in its current form.